How do you know if you're in the family scapegoat role? That's what I'll be talking about in today's episode of Beyond Family Scapegoating Abuse, so stick around. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Rebecca Mandeville, psychotherapist and certified clinical trauma professional, and the author of Rejected, Shamed, and Blamed: Help and Hope for Adults in the Family Scapegoat Role. And I wanted to first thank all of my subscribers for your kind messages after the loss of a family member. It was very moving for me. I wasn't expecting it, and the sensitivity shown in the comments made me feel privileged that I get to do these videos and meet all of you, and we all have so much in common. You may notice you're having a more expansive view of my office, and that is because I moved a table into another part of the house and forgot I needed it. So I thought, well, there's some symbology here, because part of what I'm doing in sharing my experiences as a clinician, as a researcher on what I call family scapegoating abuse, or FSA, I'm hoping to broaden and expand your perspective, not only to have better clinical understanding of what happened to you in your dysfunctional or narcissistic family, but also to give you a sense of hope that you can expand beyond the scapegoat narrative, that damaging false narrative that sticks to you like feather onto tar. And you can expand beyond the pain, that deep soul pain of being the scapegoat in your family of origin. That doesn't mean we don't feel the pain at times. But knowing that we cared enough to feel something, that we have enough humanity to feel sad regarding missed connections or lost connections, or connections you may have felt you never ever had. And those of you who may have come across the clinical term attachment trauma, you may have an early sense of missed connection, so to speak. And attachment trauma, betrayal trauma, those are all part of, along with complex trauma, of what I call scapegoat trauma. I'll be defining that in more detail later in a future video, article, perhaps even a new book. And that's the term I'm using along with family scapegoating abuse, is scapegoat trauma. Scapegoat trauma is a result of experiences in your family of origin. And in my book, I listed 16 experiences common to FSA survivors. And these are research-based. I didn't just pull these up out of the air or make them up, or, oh, it happened to me, so it must be happening to everybody. I have been doing various types of qualitative, that means someone's lived experience. Sometimes we call that phenomenological research, experiential research, qualitative research. And that is what supported my introductory guide on family scapegoating abuse when I introduced the term. So let's get to the 16 experiences common to survivors of family scapegoating abuse. Number one, you may identify as being codependent or highly sensitive and empathic. You may have the fawn, submit response, to avoid conflict or people pleasing. Alternatively, you may have no problem setting boundaries and will defend yourself without hesitation if you feel you are being disrespected or violated in some manner. And when I say response, I'm talking about trauma responses. I saw all of the trauma responses within the not only my work with clients, but in my FSA research. 2, you may have difficulty expressing your feelings because at a very young age, you learn to be careful about revealing too much of yourself as it would be used against you by family members. You may have been told by a parent or other family member that you are cold, unloving, insensitive, too sensitive, heartless, selfish, dramatic, narcissistic, stubborn, etc., by a scapegoating parent when you did attempt to express your honest emotions and experiences, even when you were very young. And then I added here, as a result of stuffing down or repressing your feelings and natural responses, you may experience various physical ailments or struggle with addiction, codependency, anxiety, depression, or obsessive compulsive behaviors. 3, you are made to feel solely responsible for the quality of your relationship with a parent, primary caregiver, dominant sibling, or others in your family. If there are problems in the relationship, it is viewed as being your fault, no matter what. 4, you have been labeled a liar, crazy, mentally or I should say, emotionally ill by one or more family members. And that can be part of the scapegoat narrative that family members get inoculated into and then adopt, as I've said in other videos, the shock of death of a parent and then the same ideology, propaganda is coming out of the sibling's mouth. And you're shocked because you didn't realize the siblings had actually bought into that narrative about you. You may have distanced, this is still part of number 4, you may have distanced yourself from select relatives as a result of continued character assassination. Many of you know that as a smear campaign, in an attempt to protect yourself and minimize personal harm. 5, one or more family members have been physically, sexually, emotionally, or mentally abusive towards you, including gaslighting you. That can also, I call that reality distortion. It can be that as well. For example, denying, distorting, there I said it, and twisting events to show themselves in a better light at your expense. And it's really important to remember that if a family member has sexually abused you, either when you were, if it was a sibling, when you're children, or a parent, or step parent, someone brought into the family, that person who sexually abused you has a vested interest in portraying you as a crazy liar to the outside world. It works out very well for them. So they might, even if you don't know it, behind your back might be sowing those seeds. So this, again, is propaganda, so to speak, and part of the scapegoat narrative. And yet this is how the scapegoat narrative starts. And think of it like a tumbleweed as it rolls. It gets bigger and bigger, or like a snowball. This is how the scapegoat narrative starts to form, is through these types of experiences I'm mentioning. Because if you're a child and you've been sexually molested and then you tell, you need to be discredited in case or when you did that. So this can be quite calculated. In no way would this fall into any kind of unconscious scapegoating. Someone has something to hide. Something needs to be covered up. There's a secret. And so not only has the child been molested in some fashion, but they now are being portrayed as someone who's not what we call in therapy land a reliable reporter. Probably the police use that as well. Are they a believable reporter, reliable reporter? So there's a conscious, intentional need to make the abused family member the unreliable reporter. And that would go not just for sexual abuse, although that's where I can see it, where the campaign starts very early on in a child's life, but it can be also from emotional and mental abuse and physical. So imagine what that child's going through. And those of you who've been through it, you don't have to imagine it, sadly. 6, nuclear or extended family members, or even non-family members, were informed by a parent or primary caregiver that you were a troubled problem child and were difficult to deal with and not to be trusted or believed. That is also another way that a parent, sometimes it can be a grandparent, dominant sibling, most often a parent. Again, another way to discredit you if you were to ever spill the beans on how you're being treated in terms of being psycho-emotionally abused, that invisible abuse. And family scapegoating abuse is indeed invisible psycho-emotional abuse. Number 7, if you try to inform others within or outside the family of the abuse you are experiencing as a child or years later as an adult, you are not believed, and the abusive family member will deny their behavior, again, often via the smear campaign, whereby you are once again a liar or somehow mentally, emotionally defective, again, not a believable or reliable reporter. 8, your parents may have objectified and dehumanized you in various ways. For example, you were told you were difficult, or you were made to feel incompetent and not good enough. You may have been maligned by a parent to others, including in your presence. Again, it's a myth that scapegoating only happens behind closed doors. Maybe that's true for narcissistic abuse. I don't know, but I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, it will happen right in front of you. Example, parents saying when Janie's in the room, Janie was such a difficult baby. She has so many emotional problems. And this might even happen with friends you bring home or dates. 9, you may be accused of faking a genuine illness or injury by one or more people in your family, nuclear or extended. Again, that can get wrapped up into the scapegoat narrative, and now that tumbleweed or snowball is bigger and bigger, collecting more data, so to speak, to supposedly support your being somehow defective or problem in your family. And I do have a little passage on that, number 9, in my book about being accused of faking illnesses or injuries by family members. And I have a video here. So if you click on the video tab, look from my homepage, there's a menu on the top, and click on the video tab or look through my playlists on the homepage, and you'll find a video called You're Faking It. 10, you blame yourself for any relationship difficulties you experience as an adult, fearing that there is something innately wrong with you and that you are somehow damaged and defective. Well, why wouldn't you? Because you've been told that your whole life. Well, I mean, some of you, your whole life. That it is you. It is you. It's always you. You know, this is such a no-brainer and such an obvious thing to say, and I'm sure all of you have thought of this before, but think about it. If you were physically assaulted by a family member, you would be believed, hopefully, by an outside entity that you reported this to, or secondly, you'd be supported with the physical assault with bruises visible that everyone can see. But when you're a victim of this type of psycho-emotional abuse, invisible abuse, you can even be told by family members that you must have done something wrong and you should apologize to the person who, in fact, abused you. This is why I call family scapegoating abuse one of the most horrific forms of abuse that anyone could experience, especially a child. And it just gets piled on more and more, usually into adulthood, except in families where it's like musical chairs. Someone's a scapegoat today and the golden child today, and then they switch chairs and now you're the golden child and they're the scapegoat, and that's a whole nother video that we'll get to at some other time. 11, you feel uncomfortable around your family of origin, separate, different, not part of. You feel trapped in a role of some kind, feel stifled and constricted in your interactions, a sense of having to walk on eggshells. You may feel your soul is in a vice and being squeezed. You may feel you're not able to relax and feel like your true self. I did a couple of videos on that, by the way, recently, around your family member. This feeling of dis-ease, lack of ease, dis-ease, disease, might translate into other areas of your life, resulting in your feeling like an outsider. This might in turn cause you to behave in ways that contribute to your sense of social isolation due to being unable to trust others or take interpersonal risks. And so many scapegoated adults who, even if they have figured out what happened to them, I get a lot of people writing me saying, I get it, I understand it, I accept it, thank you for your work, and I'm going to probably isolate and keep to myself for the most part the rest of my life. And I understand that. I also want to say that I know if you want to, and you may not want to, you can push through that. You can work through that. And again, expand beyond that. But it's something you'd really, even if you didn't want to do it, you might realize maybe you need to do it. We are social creatures. We do tend to do better when we have community, or at least a few people we feel care about us and that we care about. But I don't push my clients on that. I just invite them to imagine that it's possible. Or as an old Tai Chi teacher, that's hard to say, Tai Chi teacher used to say to me, to the class really, believe nothing, entertain possibilities. So that's what I say to my clients. 12, you may have difficulty forming healthy attachments and trusting, loving connections, and you may blame yourself for this. You may be attracted to addicts or alcoholics, narcissists, abusers. You know it's unhealthy, but continue to make self-damaging relationship choices. And to sum that one up, we go to what we know. We go to what we know. And try not to beat yourself up for that if that's what you've discovered. It's very understandable. That family conditioning is like an imprint. And remember, your neural pathways developed around that. And if your scapegoating started very young and you were in a high stressor, addictive, or high conflict household, your neural pathways were developing around that. 80% of the brain's developed between the age of 4 and 6. The good news is you can develop new neural pathways, and that's the gift of some of the recent brain research, brain science, and the findings there. And that's why I have affirmation videos on my channel. There's 3 now. And again, look in the video section or on my playlist. Scroll down the homepage. They're there. And I did them in the order I did them on purpose, because that's going to help you form new neural pathways. And that gives you things to say to yourself when you maybe feel like you're sliding down into a hole and can't get out. So that is something I encourage you to check out, is those affirmation videos that I offer here for free. Again, a little footnote to this one, number 12, blaming yourself for relationship difficulties. Well, if you're scapegoated, that's what you were told. Again, always your fault. You're the problem. Go apologize to the person who's abused you. I don't think so. Number 13, you have struggled with anxiety, depression, or imposter syndrome and may have even been diagnosed with a mental health disorder. And often the disorder that comes up the most for people who've scapegoated, and this is per my research, qualitative research, it has been borderline personality disorder, especially if you're female. And that's what gets slapped on you, the way Freud slapped on the histrionic diagnosis to many women back in his day. So I always am curious when I have a client tell me about that. And when I dig around, it's not always true, but often what they're suffering from is complex trauma symptoms. Sometimes there's adult, quote, supposed adult onset ADHD, when really they were undiagnosed ADHD as a child. And they were scapegoated, seen as defective, what's wrong with you, because of an undiagnosed ADHD disorder. And that's especially true for older adult survivors of family scapegoating abuse. And I've helped quite a few adult clients when it was clear to me that they likely had ADHD as children. I've helped them get diagnosed properly and get on the right medication for that, and it's been life-changing for them. Number 14, you are the client that cannot be helped in your own mind. That's never true in my mind. You are the client that cannot be helped. You have consulted with various mental health professionals, but no clinician or counselor can help you figure out why you feel the way you do or get to the heart of the matter so that you can heal at a deep core level. Talk therapy, mindfulness-based practices, or medications may help a little, although meditation can be very activating if it's not trauma-informed, not always, not with everyone, but for some. So watch out for that. And there is trauma-informed meditation out there now. You can Google it. So those types of things might help a little, but not much, unless the healing professional understands you are, in fact, an adult survivor of child abuse, some kind of child abuse, psycho-emotional abuse. They get that. They see that. They're able to recognize it as a clinician. 15, your family minimizes or ignores your personal or professional accomplishments. No matter how highly regarded you may be outside of your family of origin, you might be considered an expert in your field, for example, or have a unique talent that's recognized or enjoyed by others. Yeah, to your family, you're essentially a fake. You've somehow managed to fool everyone by pretending you are something that you couldn't possibly be, such as successful, healthy, high-functioning, respected in your profession, etc. And this, of course, may continue to your experience of imposter syndrome. So I have a video about that too, and it's an oldie but goodie, and it's probably one of my most popular videos. But it's Bizarre Realities series, the mind-bending realities scapegoated adults experience. And so number 15's in there, so you might want to take a look. And last but not least, and I know there's more than 16, and I'm going to ask you actually to share ones you would add in a moment. 16, you may have had no choice but to reduce or limit contact with one or more family members to protect your own mental and emotional health, sometimes physical. I've had adult clients come to me who are being physically assaulted by siblings, for example. So it's not always psycho-emotional. You may question yourself for this decision. You may feel guilty, bad, wrong for distancing yourself from your family. Nuclear or extended family members may openly state to others that you deserve to be an outcast and take no responsibility for their part in the dysfunctional interactions or for your pulling away from the family system, particularly if their actions towards you were overtly or covertly abusive. And if you broke contact, of course, then you're selfish, you don't care about family. And all of that now is rolling into the scapegoat narrative. So that is a 16 that most came up in my qualitative research in just one of my surveys. And I had over 1,000 respondents to that. And that's the one I think I sent out in 2018 or 19. So I'd like to know from you in the comments, did you relate to any of these? Would you add to these? Because I do hope to get a second book out one day. And please remember that this is public. Your comments are public. So if you feel you need to be cautious because of that, please do be. I hope you got something out of today's video, even if you've already read my book. And if you have, thank you. Thank you for that support. And I hope it helped you. If you haven't subscribed, I encourage you to. You can click on the click here icon there down on the bottom of your screen. I think it's the right side. Look there and click the white bell so that you're notified. You have to then click again after the white bell, I think, and say you want to be emailed if I put out a video. And I try to get a video out every Saturday at 11 o'clock Pacific time. And I haven't been here quite as much the last few weeks because all kinds of things going on, including now a huge 100+ pound dog of mine blowing out their knee. So when it rains, it pours. But I was really looking forward to getting back here in front of all of you today. And I'm so grateful for this community that we are forming. And I'm getting to know some of you personally and really, really love hearing from you. And I hope to be here again next week. Take care.